Welcome back to Talkin' Giants, presented by the Fanatics Sportsbook. Today is March 20th, 2026, and we had Ryan Dunleavy of The Post on. Good conversation that lasted for around 50 minutes. Talked about, let off with a little bit of running back talk and a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but Ryan Dunleavy thinks it's legit. And then we talked about free agency as well. Even did a little bit of journalism 101 for you. It was a conversation that stretched a ton of different ways and a ton of different areas, and I'm excited for you to listen to it. Sean and I will be back in the early part of next week, probably with a mailbag, so keep an eye out for a tweet, a post, something across all the different platforms. If you want to ask us a question, I would love for you to ask us a question because we haven't done a mailbag in a little bit. So that'll probably be what you're going to hear in the early part of next week. Before I toss it over to Ryan Dunleavy, I got to talk to you about SeatGeek. Yes, SeatGeek is still here. We love SeatGeek so much. The MLB season is nearly here, not to mention the NBA, NHL, the World Cup is coming up this summer. Go see a NASCAR race. There's going to be a ton of games and events worth seeing live. And if you're planning to get out to a stadium or an arena this year, SeatGeek is the place to get your tickets. They're the only place to get your tickets, which is why I want to give a sponsor a shout out and a thank you to SeatGeek for sponsoring today's video. They have over 35 million downloads and over 70,000 listed events. SeatGeek, they're the number one rated ticketing app in the world, but you already knew that. And of course, we got a code for you guys. It's JohnBoy10 to get 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. That's 10% off any tickets with promo code JohnBoy10. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. Thank you to SeatGeek. And here's Ryan Dunleavy. All right, welcome back, and I want to welcome on the show Ryan Dunleavy, NFL reporter for the New York Post, NY Post Sports. Ryan Dunleavy, I am taking away, I'm doing two things to you today for you to come on this interview. I'm taking you away from being a good father, and I'm taking you away from March Madness. But nevertheless, thank you so much for joining me. How you doing?
Two things I love. I guess you're the third. I guess you're the third thing I love, Justin.
Out of those things, I'm glad to come on third on that.
Distant third.
Okay, all right. I don't know if you need to edit that. No, but all right. So here's how we're gonna start. I want to get this out of the way. Please get out of the way. Anything you want to say about the running back position that's going to make me upset?
It's I love it. That's literally my whole identity.
Rip the Band-Aid. It's now back. Just when we thought that it was gone, and the debate from 2018 to 2024 is gone. We blink, and here we are.
It's real, man. It's real. I've called enough people around the league who know people within the Giants. It's real. It's real that the Giants are interested in Jeremiyah Love. It is real that they were interested in Kenneth Walker. Does that mean they'll pick him? No. Does that mean they'll have a chance to pick him? No. I mean, they were interested in Roma Dudze. They picked Malik Neighbors. That's just the way it works, right? You don't get everybody you're interested in. But it's real that there is a scenario where certain players are gone, where they've done certain things between now and then in free agency, where he is the player that they pick. It is not unquestionable. John Harbaugh believes in great players. The old Dave Gettleman gold jacket. This is the highest he's ever picked. So he's not going to waste that on, I have to pick a right tackle or a cornerback or a receiver who I don't think is as good as this player who I think is going to go to the Hall of Fame. So it's real. To me, as we all know, I'm the champion of running backs. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't do it with this team because I think there's enough other holes where you could get a pretty good impact player. And I think that if I ranked their 11 positions on strength and quality, I would say running back somewhere towards the upper echelon, somewhere in the upper ear. I think edge rushers 1, but running backs 3 or 4 or 5. I think they have 2 good players. So I wouldn't do it, but I understand why. If you think Daniel Jeremiah threw out yesterday the idea that the Rams could trade up for Jeremiyah Love, and they have Kyron Williams, who's better than Cam Scadaboo and Tyrone Tracy. So if they can do it, the Giants certainly can do it.
Yeah, and I think the important thing, I don't want to turn this into pick number 5 in NFL draft talk. I actually do have another question for you later. Not about pick 5 specifically, about
we could just do a running backs podcast. You know what? That's what I should do. I should start the running backs podcast and just have a different NFL running back come on every week and have Saquon be my co-host.
Make running backs great again. Yeah, so
they are great again.
They are. So yeah, man. Well, the thing that was interesting, I want to dissect one thing that you said. It literally was one thing, and you might have just thrown it away. But you said something along the lines of, I've had it in my head, of certain players that are on the team. Like if it gets to a certain point, like when we get closer to the draft of like Giants players on team, and I think that maybe you were talking about like the running back room.
No, I'm talking about like right now they have a huge hole at right guard.
Okay,
if they still have a huge hole at right guard, then I'm going to tell you Francis Mauigoa is a very likely pick. If they sign Greg Van Roten or they trade Kayvon for a right guard a right guard, then I'm going to say that's different. I'm saying right now there's this team. If the draft was tomorrow, I believe Jeremiyah Love would be a very strong consideration. Yep. I would not do it because I'd look to plug right guard or corner or defensive tackle, but they, I think, would do it. And what would change is if they don't, but I think they're planning to add between now and then to some of those spots. I don't think on April 26th, they expect to have a depth chart where Evan Neal or Josh Ezeudu is the starting right guard, or I don't even know, or Darius Alexander is the starting defensive tackle. I think they expect to have added to those spots by then.
Yeah, so let's start there before we get to the guys that are kind of like on like that they added in specific players, right? This is the elephant in the room right now. It's not addressing an interior O-line and not addressing interior D-line. Now, they haven't necessarily been linked to any specific interior D-line, at least from my knowledge. But now this is 2 off seasons in a row, Ryan. Will Freeze, they went after day one of free agency last year, and they missed. They went after AVT. They went after Wyatt Teller. They didn't get either of those guys. So that's at least 2 more misses with guys on the interior. They clearly,
I'm not sure. Let's clear. I'm not sure how hard they went after Wyatt Teller.
Okay.
Like they went hard after Elijah Vera Tucker, and that market blew up beyond what anybody, not just with the Giants, people I know around the league where I was asked, people I know with the Jets, thought that market was going to go. Yeah. So I'm not sure. They were in on Elijah Vera Tucker. They got priced out, similar to Cordell Flott, similar to Wando Robinson. I'm not sure they were in on Wyatt Teller.
But still, that's 2 off seasons in a row where they went after kind of younger interior offensive linemen, right? Some of these top of the market-ish guys that they were willing to pay big-ish money to on the interior. And it's 2 off seasons in a row where they've kind of have swung and missed at that spot. Now, the one thing I can respect is their pivot has been a player that has been an Ironman over the last 2 seasons. He hasn't missed a snap. And Greg Van Roten, I think, for his price and where they got him from, has been absolutely fantastic. But their pivot hasn't been all that inspiring, considering that the kind of ceiling that they've been looking to reach over the last 2 off seasons. So, now we're at the point in free agency where, is that addition really out there? And is that guy that they could add to the interior that makes you go, yeah, I think that kind of answers that, and that makes me feel good. Is that really available to them at this point? And I think no, right?
I think no, and I also think you're taking for granted that, Greg Van Roten will just come out. Not only do I not think the better pivot is there, I think they might end up with a worse pivot. I think they might be taking Greg Van Roten for granted, which I don't think Greg Van Roten loves. I think if they want Greg Van Roten, then maybe they don't, but I've heard there's mutual interest. If they want him, I think they should act soon, because I don't think he's going to just sit there and wait to be the Giants' fallback option. I think, if some other team says, you know what, I don't like our right guard situation, and we have a guy we could plug and play who's 35, but a 1-year, $5 million deal, we know we'll get 1,000 snaps out of him. I think there's a chance you could lose Greg Van Roten. So not only do I think there's not a better pivot there, I think I would be worried about a worse pivot. I would sign him, and if I draft one in the 2nd round, or if I end up with a 3rd-round pick after a trade down, which I think is the Giants trading down from 34 or 35 to 50 and 67 or something, I think is very, very possible. Then great. Then I have a rookie 3rd-round pick. I could plug, and maybe he plays half the season. Van Roten plays half the season. I'd be more worried about losing this level and dropping to this level than I am right now about getting to this level.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. It's clearly they know that they want to go after it, but I can't help but sit here and be like, I have a hard time separating I love this free agency so far. I liked what they've done. I like that they haven't been overly aggressive with any certain player, but the areas that they are being aggressive in, there's players that are like, hey, punter, they added an all-pro punter. They added an all-pro fullback, so they reset the market there. Okay, great. You got the best guys in their position. Isaiah Likely, we expect bigger and more production out of him, right? So I like what overall they've done. They've handed out a bunch of one-year deals. We're the one-year New York Football Giants, so I've liked their approach, but I can't help but
remind me. I want to circle back to that for a second, but go ahead, keep talking.
The one year New York Football
don't
Giants.
let me forget about that. Yeah,
I won't let you forget it. But again, the elephant in the room is that these two positions that they desperately need on the interior and the trenches. I mean, what have these Super Bowl teams over the last couple of years taught us is that the trenches are so damn important, kind of now more than ever. And I feel like they know that they need to acknowledge it.
Yeah.
Yet here we are.
I will say this. I think the Giants offensive line, and look, you probably not probably. You know me. I don't ever pretend to be something I'm not. Yeah. I am not an offensive line savant. In no way is when I have offensive line technique questions, I call the same 5 people. Mm-hmm. You're not getting my words aren't my words when I'm breaking down offensive technique. So offensive line technique. I could do receiver, quarterback, corner, defensive line. Anyway, my point being, I do think there is something to the fact that I think their offensive line was above average last year. And I do think that those 5 guys, if you brought back Van Roten, I am a big fan of chemistry, guys in the same spots, some greater than individual parts. Like we all celebrate the Giants' great 42 and 46 offensive lines. Snee's an excellent player who's like, in the Ring of Honor, not going to the Hall of Fame. What are the other guys? Like, is Kareem McKenzie? He's not as good as Andrew Thomas. Is he? Right. He's probably Jermaine Illuminor. Like, O'Hara. Like, you could tell me Schmitz will be as good as O'Hara in a couple years. Like, they weren't. They didn't have a Hall of Famer on that line. They just played together for a really long time, and they had each other's back. So I don't mind it. The key is a healthy Andrew Thomas.
Yes.
And I
think the key too, Ryan, on top of that, I think the key too, and they've been very lucky over the last 2 years, is usually when Andrew Thomas is hurt, usually nobody else is hurt.
Yeah.
Like usually they only have one injury at a time. And I get worried where if this is finally going to be the year where out of the, since 2023, where everybody got hurt and they lost everybody immediately, I'm worried that you can't just predict and be a negative Nancy for no reason, but I think you should plan and you should have backup and contingency plans if you lose more than one lineman at a time. They've been very lucky over the last couple of years where they basically have been at worst one lineman down at a time.
If I'm nitpicking something they've done on the offensive line so far, it'd be I don't really understand that Evan Neal, Josh Ezeudu re-signings. Like you can just swap out your underachieving backup offensive lineman for another team's underachieving backup offensive lineman. That's the whole like fresh start. Maybe Ezeudu is good somewhere else. Maybe the Jaguars version of Ezeudu is good here. Eric Flowers, blah blah blah. Like, I don't really understand the idea that you re-signed 2 guys who literally took 0 combined snaps last year. You did everything not to play them last year. I would have just for the sake of new bodies, fresh blood, whatever, I would have probably
new energy too. I think there's a thing about like an energy and a vibe. Yeah, man. Yeah. Like in the room, and
not just with us. Yeah. In the room. Yes, exactly. Forget what we think. I think in the room. Yeah. In the building. Yeah. People in the building know Evan Neal didn't work particularly hard.
Yeah.
So whether Harbaugh is willing to give him a second chance or not, there's 60 teammates who know that guy doesn't really bust it.
Right.
So,
yeah. Josh Ezeudu cried after a game one time.
Yeah, you know what? I don't have a problem. That comes up a lot, Justin. Yeah. I don't have a problem with that. Like, I saw Brian Burns crying after a game this year. Nobody's ripping him because he had 16 and a half sacks. Ezeudu cried because it was his man who hurt Daniel Jones's neck, and we didn't know how bad that was going to be. We didn't know who knew. Neck injuries are serious things. I don't have a problem with Josh Ezeudu crying after that game. I really don't.
So what's your thoughts on kind of their approach overall? And overall takeaways from free agency so far. And then even if you've talked with sources around the league that they've said about what the Giants have done so far in free agency.
So I'll tell you a couple things. Sorry I keep turning my head, but
there's important things going on. I get it.
Yeah. Yeah, my bracket's about to go in a shredder.
I think everybody's bracket's about to go in a shredder if Duke
Yeah.
doesn't pull this out.
They're down one. So and yes, I have talked to people, just not today because it's bracket day, but I have talked to people around the league. My thoughts on what they've done. I think they're about the same, or I can't say better. They're about the same as they were overall to me. Me and my friends always joke, like, if they were a 78 in Madden, I think they're still like a 78 or a 77 in Madden. Like, they just reshuffled some of the needs to me. Like, Wan'Dale Robinson was good, okay, but now you have a tight end, now you have a bigger slot receiver, okay, but he's never done anything close to what Wan'Dale's done. Like, you lost Cordell Flott, so now you have a huge hole at corner, but you should be better at inside linebacker. So, like, to me, they just shuffled where their holes are. Then obviously they got younger. To me, I think they still have big needs at defensive tackle. Probably need two guys. Newsome would be a nice third corner in my world. I'd like to see a second corner, or at least somebody he's capable of competing with. That isn't Deonte Banks. Receiver, I think I like what they did there in terms of the contracts. I think Mooney and Calvin Austin, I mean, if combined, I think they're paying them like $5 million guaranteed.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah, I think that those were two very high value contracts. So I like that. The right guard thing scares the bejesus out of me. So I think it's incomplete right now. The one thing sources have said to me is they're doing a Ravens-esque thing. This is something I hadn't thought of. Maybe you have. The Giants don't usually play this game. 1-year contracts, I always think of as like prove-it contracts, right, Justin?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They said 1-year contracts are comp contracts,
okay,
which I hadn't thought of. You sign a guy to a 1-year contract, and if he plays well, then either you re-sign him or you lose him because he earned so much money by playing well for you that he goes somewhere else, and now you're playing the comp pick game. Mm-hmm. And if he doesn't play well, then he's off the team, and it's not a Kenny Galladay or a Nate Solder, anvil on your salary cap. So the 1-year salary is something the 1-year contract is something the Ravens do, because there's two ways for it to help you. He plays well and he wants to stay, or he plays well and he gets you a comp pick. So I don't think of the Giants in the comp pick game, but I think you're seeing like, oh, okay, Mooney's here. Well, if he has a 1,000-yard season this year, which he's had 2 of, then great, we re-sign him, or somebody's going to overpay for the 1,000-yard receiver in free agency, and we get a 4th-round pick for him the next year. So that, to me, I thought when somebody brought that up to me, I thought that was interesting.
The thing that's curious about that, I mean, this offseason we're penny pinching a little bit, right? Because of the cap space that's currently available to them right now. Mm-hmm. But next offseason, I mean, as of now, it's still, I haven't checked since all these new contracts and all these new, Isaiah likely has a $17 million cap next year as opposed to a $6 million. But they have a lot more cap space. Like, cap space will not be a conversation next year as of now.
The reason they have a lot more cap space is because they flopped in the 2020. The reason they have cap space is they flopped in the 2023 draft.
Yes,
so they're
100%.
They're not re-signing. They're not, who doesn't have a lot of cap space is like the Eagles, because they have to re-sign all these great draft picks to monster contracts.
So that's why the comp pick conversation intrigues me, because like, okay, yeah, is Darnell Mooney really going to go somewhere and get a 3 for 35, 3 for 40 contract?
I mean, if he has what he did 2 years ago, what did he have, like 81 for 992? Yeah, somebody will pay. Somebody will give him a Darius Slayton contract if he has 81 for 992, and there's 100-something catches available after Wan'Dale leaves, and go ahead.
But then you got to keep in mind that in order to not cancel out those comp picks that you get, you have to lose more than what you gain.
No, that's a good point. They're good. Yeah, no, that's a great point, actually. Yep.
So that's why I don't know, as we're talking about comp picks, and I've seen that conversation a lot, because of how uniquely situated the Giants are in terms of Dart rookie contract, Neighbors rookie contract, Abdul Carter rookie contract, Burns is still affordable, Thomas is still affordable, everybody's still affordable. Plus their draft classes have flopped. I don't know if that I mean, sure, they could be setting themselves up for that if they want to, but I don't know if that should be at the forefront of what they're, and I don't think that it is at the forefront of what they're doing. So
I think it's just established in practice too. You know what I mean? Like, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
So we're going to start it now. And if it doesn't pay off in comp picks in 2026, maybe as long as we keep doing it and we know how we're going to operate, then it will in 2028, you know?
And forget comp picks. I love the strategy of we're finding players that we can give 1-year deals to, because I just think it's human nature. I mean, I'm in a business where I sign 1 to 2 year contracts, and I gotta admit, when I'm on a year where I know I have a contract coming up, I'm gonna work a little bit damn harder until I get that security. And I think anybody else that is in that kind of business could relate to that. I think that's just human nature. So I like it from that standpoint, giving a 26-year-old Greg Newsome a 1-year, $10 million contract. All right, you want more? You're going to go out and you're going to earn it. We're going to get the best version of you this year.
And it's clear that he told him that, because Greg Newsome, I'll probably do this, never hear this again. Greg Newsome signed a 1-year contract and talked about retiring as a Giant. Like, I've never heard that before. Like, he was like, he basically, it's clear they told him, go out, earn it, and you'll come, we'll give you a multi-year deal. And he's been a good player in the past with the Browns. But for him to talk about like going out there and earning it and getting a big second deal and wanting to be with the Jets before he's played 1 game on a 1-year contract was strange. But it was clear they sold him that message and he took it hook, line, and sinker.
All right, before we keep talking to Ryan Dunleavy, I got to tell you about Ultra, because everyone needs that boost in the morning or in the middle of a long day. Just feel like you need something. Coffee and energy drink, anything to help you get the boost you need to get the day going or even to finish it strong. I know I get that 2 p.m. feeling, and that's where Ultra pouches come in. They are a nicotine and caffeine-free pouch that can help provide clean energy and focus without the crash. And Ultra partnered with leading neuroscientists to create a smooth, focused energy that can last up to 2 hours. And instead of that classic spike and crash, Ultra can help you enter that flow state you need to lock in, whether that's grinding through work, getting through a long travel day, or dialing in for a workout. Ultra's going to help you stay in the zone without the roller coaster. And I don't like roller coasters. Ultra is the ultimate guilt-free pouch, delivering instant focus and a mental clarity without nicotine or caffeine. New customers can use code GIANTS to get 50% off at takeultra.com. GIANTS after you purchase. Use that code. They're going to ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show. Tell them that we sent you. Use that code GIANTS at takeultra.com to get 15% off. All right, now back to talk with Ryan Dunleavy. What do you think the expectation is for Isaiah Likely? I mean, that's not a small chunk of change that they're giving to a tight end 2. So
I don't think he's a tight end 2. I think he's a tight end 2 / wide receiver 2 or 3. I think they're hoping to get a lot of bang for the buck out of that. Like, I think if you told them, like, however much the Titans spent on Wandale and Bellinger versus however much we spent on Likely, Austin, and Mooney, like, that's how they're looking. Like, these 3 guys equal those 2 guys, and we spent less, and hopefully we'll get the same amount of cumulative production. So I don't think they're looking at him as a tight end 2. I think they're looking at him as a big slot receiver who can play some tight end. Like, there could be times where the scorebook or whatever will say they're in, 3 tight end personnel.
Yes.
And you're like, oh, they were in 3 tight ends, but it's not like goal line bunch 3 tight end personnel. Yep. It's like Likely in the slot, like a receiver, with Manhurts and Theo Johnson as the bookends.
Yeah, I mean, you can even take one of those guys off the field, and then you got Ricard lining up at inline tight end.
Correct.
Ryan, this has been. I'm already starting to do this, and I'm sorry for people that religiously listen to the show. They hear me talk about this every damn show. I am going to spend all summer thinking of all of the different combinations.
Correct, you could.
That they could do of, just because they line up in the huddle and you think that, okay, well, this is 13 personnel, which would be 3 tight ends on the field. Oh, but then you have, again, Likely goes out wide, and Ricard could go in the backfield, and Ricard can line up in line, and then that changes, what you think is going to happen.
Correct. And the idea is to play the mismatch game, and the defense knows, okay, if they're in 13 personnel, then we're in this defense. And so you see the 3 tight ends and you line up in your 13 personnel, and you don't think like, oh, this isn't really 13 personnel. This is actually 11 personnel or whatever, because but you're playing your 13 personnel defense, against what they consider to be their 11 personnel offense.
Yeah.
It's something the Rams did and something the Seahawks did this year, and they were both obviously highly successful. It's not the only reason. They both had Seahawks have a tremendous defense. The Rams have weapons coming out their ears, but that playing the schematic mismatch game is certainly something those two teams did that the Giants would like to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think making them pay, like making defenses pay. I mean, if you want to run out of nickel, if you want to put more corners, if you want to put more safeties on the field, like we're gonna make you pay.
Yeah.
Here comes that.
Yes, here comes likely in motion to next to Andrew Thomas and Ricard behind them, and Cam Scatterbush gets 6 yards before he's touched.
Right. So I hope that's. I mean, I'm kind of like, comp picks. Okay, if that's the talk around the league. I hope as time goes on, and maybe by the time that the Giants finish their draft and they kind of finish this, this overhaul for what this 2026 team is going to be, I hope the rest of the league is also kind of catching on. Like, damn, like I know Ricard said it in his pressure. Like, we want teams to come here and be a little afraid of kind of lining up against us. Because I think there's the foundation of that being what this 26 team is there. They got to just finish it. So
yeah, I mean, look, Ricard and Likely are both from the Ravens. So like we're talking about the guys they're at are both from the Ravens. Teams definitely don't want to go play the Ravens, but it's not just because of them. It's because of Lamar. It's because of Ronnie Stanley. It's because of Linderbaum.
Because of Derrick Henry.
Yeah, and because of Derrick Henry. So they have a ways to go to get that.
Yeah.
But yes, yes, exactly. Like they have a ways to go to get to the point where the teams don't want to play the Giants, but certainly is going to be a physical team.
Yeah. So reportedly, Matt Nagy was kind of played a big part in landing Darnell Mooney, or at least played some sort of facet. And that's really the only Nagy tie that we've gotten so far in free agency. So not really Darnell Mooney, where and how do you see him fit? But if you want to talk about that, you can. But I'm even wondering, as time has gone on and the more time that the Nagy hires kind of sat, where and how do you see him fitting here in an offensive staff and an offensive room that is seemingly mostly Harbaugh ties and has those relations kind of to him?
It's interesting. There is the possibility of the too many cooks in the kitchen. Like I've talked to a lot of people who have worked for Harbaugh on offense and defense. They say he's great at getting everybody to come together. He had Chuck Pagano, a former head coach, as like his DB's coach last year. So not only is Pagano listening to Harbaugh, he's listening to who was the DC last year, Zach Orr.
Yeah.
And Pagano's been there, done that, and he's taken so Harbaugh's magic touch or whatever is getting these guys to be on the same page. Certainly, if this wasn't Harbaugh, if this was anybody else, I'd be like, I'm a little worried about how Greg Roman running wild or Nagy, getting along. Or look, I don't think this is groundbreaking, but people on Brian Daboll's staff butted heads. And I'm not just talking about Wink Martindale. People on Brian Daboll, there was a lot of territorialism at points on Brian Daboll's staff. Harbaugh's supposed to be good at that, so that is part of his job description, is make Nagy feel like his opinion is valued and you're not just going to your boy Greg Roman. So yeah, I'm very interested to see how that comes about. I do believe they believe in similar things. Like Nagy had a buddy of mine, Michael Burton, a Rutgers guy. He had him in Kansas City and in Chicago, so he does believe in the fullback. Now, Ricard will play more than Michael Burton did.
Yeah.
But it's not like he hired Cliff Kingsbury and it's like, whoa, how is Cliff Kingsbury going to see offense the same way as Greg Roman? Like there are some similarities.
Yeah, for sure. We'll move to the defensive side. We talked about Greg Newsome a little bit. I think in an ideal world, this is where everybody is at. We're seeing Greg Newsome as a depth piece, but I do think the reality of things, and I'm kind of talking myself into this because I think this is just the reality of how many other positions that they at least want to acknowledge and they want to address in the draft, right? Greg Newsome CB2 solution for 2026, or should we see him right now as a depth piece where somebody is brought in to either compete with him or even just take that spot?
Right now he's CB2. What I think you'll see by OTAs is what you saw last year with Flott and Banks, like rotation. I don't know who that guy is. Maybe it's a 3rd-round pick. Maybe it's another veteran. But I think you'll see Newsome / player X rotation where they battle through training camp to win the job. They're not. I don't think they'll just hand the job to Newsome. I don't think Deonte Banks will be a big part of the configuration. I think you'll see Newsome and player X compete for that job.
You know, it's again. So you just mentioned Deonte Banks. Are we really going to march into 2026 where I feel like Evan Neal definitely questions, I think, on work ethic, and are you really working hard? Are you really getting, or even when he's hurt, are you really doing what you need to do to even get
all
back
those
to
questions
football?
Exist.
Right? So John Harbaugh stands there at his introductory press conference and says, we're going to get guys in here that love football. Josh Ezeudu, whatever, top, probably shouldn't have never been the 67th pick in the NFL draft, right? Was also put out in a tough spot where we're playing tackle when we should be playing guard. Okay.
They screwed him up.
But then you have like Deonte Banks and then Jalen Hyatt, who is just given opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. We're just going to roll with all these guys coming back, even though they were like the faces of dysfunction and sometimes being granted things and spots that they shouldn't be granted. We're just going to bring them back and run it all back with all those guys.
I would be surprised if any of them are on the week 1 roster.
Okay, that's what I like to hear.
But I do think I know Harbaugh liked Evan Neal in the draft. I know for a fact. You know, if he was there when the Ravens picked him, they might have picked him. When they were picking, they might have picked him. So I know for a fact he is like, before we send this guy packing, and I got to read about how, you know, he became a star, you know, with the Cowboys. Like, let me get my hands on him. Let our staff get our hands on him and see what he's all about. And they have zero guaranteed money. So like, his name's Evan Neal, but if his name was Evan Johnson, we wouldn't even think twice about him. So they have a minimum contract, zero guaranteed guy who's a former top 10 pick in the draft. Let's go see what he's about, is what he's thinking. Yeah. I assume it's similar with Banks and Hyatt, is like, hey, Banks is a 1st-round pick who played well under Wink Martindale, who I still talk to. So meaning Harbaugh. So, like, Wink's telling me that you can get something out of Deonte Banks. I'm not going to give up on him till I see him on the field. Yes, I've seen the tape where he doesn't give a full effort, and that's not a John Harbaugh thing. But, like, let me get to know him. Let me see him in OTAs before I run him off, because he was decent as a rookie under my buddy, and my buddy plays a similar system to what we're going to play here. So let me see if I could get some of that out of him. Jalen Hyatt, like, Is he super fast? Like, did he just not work hard? Did he not understand Brian Daboll's offense? Maybe he'll understand Matt Nagy's offense. So, like, I think they're all going to get a chance to be on the field under John Harbaugh, and he can see them move around, and he can see their work ethic, and he can see their attitude. I would be surprised if any of them are on the team week 3. Probably Banks is the one I'd say is most likely to be on the week 1. Excuse me. Yeah. I'd say Banks is probably the most likely of the 3 to be on the team week 1. But wouldn't be surprised if they were just, you know, we know their names because they were high draft picks given multiple shots even when they didn't deserve it, but wouldn't be surprised if Harbaugh just looked at them as camp bodies, you know, like they're my 70th, 71st, and 72nd player on the roster. And if they make it because they played great in the training camp, then so be it.
Is Darius Slayton banished?
I don't think so, man. I don't think so at all. If you told me they were playing a game tomorrow, I'd say he'd probably be, probably play 35 snaps, 40 snaps. Like,
I agree with that.
Yeah. Like, he'll be part of the wide receiver 2 rotation. Like, and I'm not sold. I know the Giants are selling it. I'm not buying that Malik Neighbors is on the field week 1 yet. So, so if they played a game, he might be wide receiver 1 in week 1. So, I would certainly say once Neighbors is healthy, he's the man, and then it's Slayton, Mooney, and Calvin Austin, and see what comes of it. Yeah.
The thing, again, getting back to personnel, it's just the thing that's on my brain.
Harbaugh's going to love Darius Slayton, too. Like, personality, personality-wise, he's going to love him. Now, he's not going to love him if he drops the ball. No coach is going to love that. But, like, in practice, around the locker room, he's going to be a hardball guy. He's got to play better than he did last year. But if he plays as well as he did 2 years ago or 3 years ago, or just, I'm not saying become a superstar. If he just plays the Darius Slayton's high end, Harbaugh's going to love him.
Yeah. And I'm really wondering, again, getting back to personnel, like the Ravens last year ran 3 tight end sets 40% of the time. That was last in the league. I don't think it's going to be that low. Inevitably, if you're going out of shotgun, which seems to be Jackson Dart's strengths, and we still haven't really seen an offense, like a under center offense and an under center offensive game plan. Started to do it, last year. I'm not saying that he can't do it, but I think shotgun just fits more of his strengths. I think shotgun fits this offensive line strengths. I don't think they're this kick-ass run blocking unit. Adding Ricard helps and things like that. But
they're a better pass blocking unit than they are a run line.
So you would think that if you're a better pass blocking unit, you're going to throw the ball a little bit more. And if you're going to throw the ball a little bit more, wouldn't you think that you would put more wide receivers out on the field? So that number is probably not going to be as low as 40%, but is it going to be in the 60s like it was with Brian Dable when you wanted to run 3 wide receiver sets all the time? So then where does that leave? If in a world where Malik Neighbors is healthy, where does that leave? What 2 wide receivers are you going to be putting on the field at the same time? And then how much is your $12 million man and Darius Slayton kind of being cut out of that?
I would say Neighbors is one of them, and Mooney and Slayton, whoever is better, is the other one. And then Austin is in the game when Ricard is not, basically. 3rd and 6, whatever, And
then you also have Likely that can line up, that can flank out in those.
Yeah, I'm putting in that situation. I'm putting Likely as a tight end, but yes,
for sure.
Yeah.
You had a tweet, and this inspired a question from me.
Was it the Evan Neal tweet where I made a mockery of myself? No.
I will say, by the way,
people went nuts about that. Huh?
What was the word? You used the word outrageous.
Outrageous. Yeah.
That is outrageous.
Thank you, Justin. I'll come on your podcast anytime.
Were people mad at you for saying that?
Yes. Yeah.
You didn't say that.
I didn't say it was like
outrageous. I didn't say it was like believe that he was back.
Yeah. I didn't say it was like a team-changing signing. Like the guesses were like trade for AJ Brown, sign Travis Kelce. First of all, a little journalism lesson. If I have that the Giants are trading for AJ Brown, I'm not tipping off any of the 9 million other reporters. So like it had to be something I was comfortable with. Like if somebody else gets this, then okay. And I would, and I just thought it was outrageous. Like I got the text while I was driving, pulled into a parking lot and sent that tweet because I was just like, that's how it blew. I was like, he's coming back.
Yeah.
And
the fact that tweet got so many,
sure was leaving.
The fact that tweet got so many people to be like, this is what I think you're talking about. This is what I think you're going to be talking about. And I'm sure nobody guessed.
One person
did. But that's how outrageous it is.
Correct. Yeah. But yes, everybody was like essentially accused me of
rage baiting or gaslighting or something like that.
Yeah, let's say gaslighting instead of blue blanking.
Oh geez. Let's
say gaslighting them. That some great player was coming. No, just an outrageous signing.
So I saw it was another tweet. Seeing the Vikings relegate JJ McCarthy reminds a bit on the all-time NFL draft smokescreen with the Giants, and their evaluation seems right. Very different than Shedeur Sanders, who some NY Giants execs love before Brian Dable spoke up about Jackson Dart. Mm-hmm. So you've already put out a power ranking based on what you've heard about the Giants may do at 5. I don't even want to talk about what they may do at 5. Mm-hmm. That's not what I want to bring up. But we're
still plenty of time for that to change. Yep.
But we're entering smokescreen season. So if anything, I'm asking a journalism 101 question here. How do you kind of balance between people telling you things to maybe like I'm trying to use you as leverage versus like for another team or whatever versus what actually is and may be legit? Like during this time of the year, how does someone like you balance that?
It's hard. I'll say the 2 things I would say are most prevalent are when you hear something like my Evan Neal tweet, try to get as many people to confirm it as possible. Don't just go with the one person, one person told me Evan Neal was coming back, and I was like, nah, I can't tweet that. That's ridiculous. I don't know if that counts as a smokescreen, but I'm like, that's so ridiculous. I can't just take one person's word for it. I need like 8 people. So like same kind of thing. If somebody told me the Giants were signing Travis Kelce, I would be like, no, I can't just take one person's word for that. I got to get that confirmed by 5 or 6 people before I feel comfortable with that. That's blockbuster news. So get more than one voice, and then rank your sources. Like the people who were selling me JJ McCarthy, I would say one of them I no longer speak to. And like, just like, not like I'm holding a grudge. I was just like, well, this guy's info isn't very good. So like, what am I, and other ones I still talk to, but I have them lower on my source power rankings, so to speak. There's 2 or 3 people I talk to that like have never steered me wrong. And so when they tell me something, I immediately jump that to the top of my, I need to find this out rankings. So know where it's coming from and try to get as many people as possible. And then some of it's common sense too. Like Giants needed JJ McCarthy. So like or what I thought JJ McCarthy was. So I was like, yeah, I kind of bid on that. Like the Travis Kelce thing, I looked into it because I was like, it makes sense that Taylor would want to live in New York. Like that makes sense to me. Like if you took the AJ Brown thing, I have not made a phone call on because I don't see a world where the Giants are trading with the Eagles. I don't see that world. So if somebody told me that, I would need like 8 people to believe that. So some of it is who, and some of it is how many, so to speak. But totally bought on the JJ McCarthy thing. Giants were really not that interested. They did their homework, but they were really not that interested. Don't see a scenario where they would have taken him at 6. Maybe if he fell to like 25, they would have traded up from the second round like they did with Dart. But Shedeur was real. Shedeur was real. I know he fell to the 5th round. Nobody wants to believe it. There was a point where Giants executives were. There are Giants executives who believed he was worthy of the number 3 pick.
You know, certain people that do draft work year round love Shedeur Sanders, and then the head coach comes in who basically does it for 3 months of the year. Was like, no, this guy does suck, and it turns out the guy.
That part I think is. I mean, not that he sucks, but like he's not our kind of guy.
Yeah,
maybe and I will say this: I do think there's a little bit of overblown. Like the Shedeur part, I think is big on Brian Daboll. Like moving off Shedeur, I think is big on Brian Daboll also gets a lot of credit for Jackson Dart, but he wasn't the only person. Even my tweet's a little misleading. Like he wasn't the only person who loved Jackson Dart. Yeah. Like there were other people in the building who are involved in that draft meeting when you see the room and they're all shaking their hand. There are other people in that room who like Jackson Dart more than Shedeur Sanders. Yeah. The combination of talent / person he wasn't on an island there. Yeah. He certainly is prominent, and we talk to him all the time. So the head coach gets more credit than the Northeast area scout or whatever person who, but he was not alone in liking him.
And people love to talk about this. Speaking of sources, and I've never thought about like ranking your sources based on like reliability and things like that. So people love to just talk about this, like, oh, since Harbaugh's come in, there's not going to be as many leaks. Has if you don't want to answer this, you don't have to answer this, but since Harbaugh's come in, has information that you've heard dried up just in the number of whispers that usually people that talk to you, do they not talk to you or whatever?
No, I don't think so. But I also think people assume like that a lot of sources are the Giants. Like,
right.
Like some sources are the Giants, but again, like journalism 101, like a lot of it is person in the Giants tells this to person in the Ravens who they don't realize. Ravens is a bad example because like person in the Giants tells this to person in the Lions. They don't realize I know person in the Lions. So person in the Lions calls me and says, hey, you'll never guess what Harbaugh just told me. And so like Harbaugh didn't tell me, but he told, this person who told me. So, or add in one more person. Harbaugh tells person in the Lions who tells person in the Packers who tells an agent and then the agent tells me. And so then it's like a game of telephone. Like, well, this is how much of some of this is true, but how much of this got lost in those 3 phone calls until it got to me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's like that Shador tweet. It's like, well, somebody replied like, well, until John Mara says they were interested in Shador at 3, I'm not going to believe it. Well, John Mara's not going to come out and say we wanted. At one point, Shador was, at one point Shador was our favorite to be the top 3 pick. He's not. Why would he say that? Like, you have to get that from other people who know where the Giants were thinking. So
I got one more for you.
Sure.
Any other move, any other signing that we haven't really touched on a ton that either you really like or you got feedback from other people being like, yeah, that's awesome or really unique, or I like it for a specific reason?
I'm looking at all the signings right now. Give me a second. I was ready for your "what are you working on" question this year.
Oh, damn it. That was, so I lied. I had 2 questions for you. I was going to ask you that.
Okay. I have that for you.
You know me. I'm really glad that you know me well like that, because I like to ask people what they're working on.
Yeah.
Like, did you hear anybody be like, "Oh, Darius Washington, man, that 2024"?
No, that's what I'm doing. I actually forgot about Darius, so that's why I'm looking up the signings, because I don't want to. I have not heard a single word about Darius Washington.
Oh,
no.
Damn. You guys got a hidden All-Pro.
No.
Feel free to make something up. Make something up that makes me feel excited about somebody.
No, the answer. No, I mean, I do think this. I did get a text that's like, it's not. Not about the player specifically, but I did get a text that said it's the least surprising thing ever that Harbaugh is prioritizing special teams. The Giants will win some games this year. I would pull up my phone is charging. The text essentially said it's the least surprising thing ever that Harbaugh is prioritizing special teams. The Giants will win more games this year just based on coaching and special teams. Nice. So, the kicking game cost them, as we all know. We don't need to go through it. It cost them so many games last year, and not just Gillen. That you could kind of take 2 or 3 of those 1-score games. Like, they beat the Broncos if they makes those extra points.
Yeah,
there's a game either last year or the year before they win if Gillen doesn't shank a punt to like the 50-yard line late in the game. So somebody was like, they'll win more games, not just on having better coaching and being better in the kicking game. So, somebody sent me that text who's familiar with the kicking game. So yeah, I think that's I think the Sanders signing and the Stout signing as a whole, not either one individually, but the idea that like the Giants could have a very good special teams unit is something people see as like, oh, that's how you take a 5. Would they win 4? That's how you take a 4-win team and make it a 6-win team. Better coaching, then you make it a 6-win team, an 8-win team. That kind of thing.
I'm dying to know what's going on.
The Post is doing 30 days of draft stories in 30 stories in 30 days, and I'm doing most of them. So that is either this year we're doing 30 stories in 30 days. It won't all be Giants. Won't all be Jets. It was some league-wide stuff, some stuff that echoes into the Giants, calling people around to find out like, which 5 teams are most likely to want to trade up to 5 or whatever. So 30 days, I think it starts March 26th or whatever. 30 stories in 30 days about the NFL draft. It's a lot of content. Some stuff I've always wanted to dive into, like, for example, like why North Dakota State has a crazy quarterback pipeline.
Yeah.
Like of all the schools, Alabama, Ohio State, and North Dakota State will be the 3 schools with the most quarterbacks drafted since 2016 after this year. Like, that's crazy. Well, which one does not belong, right? North Dakota.
Yeah, they got a crazy O-line pipeline too.
Yeah, exactly. So there's an O-line specific story in there. Obviously that echoes the Giants. So 30 stories, 30 days, some features, some enterprise, talking to sources, it's a project, and I know people love the draft at this time of year, but it's a project I'm excited about.
All right, right on. Ryan Dunleavy, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
All right, thank you once again to Ryan Dunleavy for coming on the show. Like I said, Sean and I are going to be back in the early part of the week. I don't know if you picked up on this. Sean Marash is on for once a week in the offseason. Sometimes he's on twice, depending on if it's a slow week, if I can't get a guest or anything like that. I haven't really fully told you guys what the overall offseason setup was. But Sean is usually on for once a week. Probably will change a little bit during the draft month where he may come on for twice a week. But he's usually on the early part of the week. And then I usually have a guest or do something different in the latter part of the week. But Sean and I will probably have a mailbag on Tuesday out. So you can listen, and we'll talk about numerous different things. I love mailbag episodes. They're some of my favorites. All right, thanks for watching. Have a great weekend. Let's go Giants.
It starts today. Let's go Giants! We woo!